My son-in-law looked at my wife the way a man looks at a stray dog that has wandered onto his clean porch. He did not touch her. He did not raise his voice. He simply turned to the event coordinator, a young woman in a red blazer holding a clipboard, and said, loud enough for the entire receiving line to hear, "She's not on the priority list. She can wait with the general public." My wife, Celestine, 41 years my partner, the woman who raised our daughter on a school teacher's salary while I drove a city bus 6 days a week. The woman who ironed his shirts the first Thanksgiving he came to our house because she wanted him to feel welcome. She stood at the entrance of the Hargrove Civic Center in her best church dress, a deep burgundy with pearl buttons she had sewn on herself, and she did not flinch. She smiled, the kind of smile that holds an ocean behind it. I was 3 steps behind her, close enough to hear everything, close enough to watch my daughter, Renee, look at the floor. My daughter looked at the floor and said nothing. My name is Leonard Earl Dupree. I am 64 years old. For the last 12 years, I have let my son-in-law believe I am exactly what I look like. A retired city bus driver living off a pension, driving a 2009 Chevy Silverado with a cracked dashboard and a rear bumper held together by a bungee cord. Marcus Holt has shaken my hand at Christmas dinners and Thanksgiving tables and never once asked me a single question about my life. He sees my Walmart sneakers and my off-brand coffee, and he sees a man who peaked at 60 and has been coasting downhill ever since. He has never asked about the 47 properties I own across 3 counties. He has never asked about the holding company registered in my father's name that manages affordable housing contracts for the city. He has never asked why, when certain developers sit down with city planners, my lawyer is already in the room. He never asked. So I never told him. I preferred it that way. I built what I built quietly, the way my father taught me. You do not announce your harvest. You plant. You tend. You wait. And when the time comes, the fruit speaks for itself. But standing in the lobby of a building I had helped finance with a silent donation 11 years ago, watching the man my daughter chose treat my Celestine like an inconvenience, I understood that my silence had become permission. Before I tell you what I pulled from the inside pocket of my jacket that night, I want you to know something about my wife. Celestine Dupree does not need saving, never has. But every woman, no matter how strong, deserves to have her husband stand up. So, I stood up. The Hargrove Civic Center Gala was Marcus's big night. He was being honored by the Meridian Business Council for his commercial real estate work deals he had structured, partnerships he had cultivated. He had spent 3 weeks talking about it at every family dinner. The invitations were mailed on cream cardstock with gold lettering. My daughter hand-delivered ours with a note that said, "Please dress nice, Daddy. This is important to Marcus." End quote. Celestine wore the burgundy dress. I wore my father's suit, a charcoal wool blend he had tailored in 1987. It looks simple. It is not. We arrived the same time as the Holtz's business associates, men in rented tuxedos stepping out of car services. I drove us in the Silverado. I parked in the surface lot, and we walked to the entrance together, Celestine's arm in mine, the way we have walked into every room for 41 years. Marcus was standing near the entrance, greeting arriving guests when he saw us coming. Something moved across his face, not joy, not warmth, more like the mild irritation of a man who has forgotten to put away something embarrassing. He straightened his tie and turned back to the man he was speaking with, a developer from Atlanta named Prescott, finishing his sentence before acknowledging us. "Leonard," he said finally, shaking my hand with the grip he reserves for people he is tolerating. "Celestine." He did not hug her. He looked at her dress, and he looked away. Then the event coordinator materialized at his elbow, and he leaned toward her and said those words. "Priority list. General public." Celestine's smile did not waver. Mine did. I let go of my wife's arm. I reached into the inside pocket of my jacket. It was a slow movement, deliberate, and I saw Marcus clock it from the corner of his eye. He turned back fully, probably expecting me to pull out a phone or a parking ticket. What I pulled out was a flat card, matte black with a small bronze emblem in the lower right corner. There were no numbers on it, no expiration date, no bank logo. Just my initials and that emblem, the seal of the Hargrove Community Development Foundation. I held it out to the event coordinator. "Run that through your system, please," I said. My voice was even. Celestine had her eyes on Marcus. The coordinator looked at the card. She looked at Marcus. He gave a small nod. The way you humor a stubborn elderly relative. She took the card to the check-in terminal. What happened next took about 4 seconds. The terminal chimed not a standard acceptance tone, a different sound entirely, lower and fuller. The coordinator's expression shifted. She looked at the screen. She looked at the card. She looked at me. Then she looked at Marcus, with an expression he was not prepared for. "Sir," she said to him, "not to me. This gentleman is listed as a founding patron of this center. His access is unrestricted." She turned to me and straightened slightly. "Mr. Dupree, I apologize for the delay. Please, let me show you and Mrs. Dupree to the patron reception. We have been expecting you." I took the card back. I slid it into my pocket. I offered Celestine my arm. Marcus Holt stood at the entrance of his biggest night, with his mouth open and nothing coming out. "Close the door when you come in, son," I said. "The AC is running." We walked inside. Now, I want to be honest with you, because what came next was not just one night's embarrassment. That would have been enough for me to let it go, to chalk it up to a man with an inflated sense of himself, and move on. I had done it before. 12 years of dinners and holidays and small slights. 12 years of Celestine telling me, "He's just insecure, Leonard. Renee loves him. Let it be." I had let it be. But the humiliation at the entrance was not the real problem. The real problem was what Renee was not telling us. I did not know it yet that night. I found out 3 days later, by accident, the way most painful truths arrive quietly, through a side door. I had stopped by Renee and Marcus's house on a Tuesday morning to drop off a chest freezer. Celestine wanted them to have. Renee's car was in the driveway, but no one answered the front door, so I went around to the side gate, which Renee had given me a key to years ago. I could hear voices through the kitchen window. Renee's and a woman I did not recognize. I was not eavesdropping. I was crossing the yard to knock on the back door, but I heard my name, and my feet stopped before my mind did. "Your father's property," the woman was saying. Her voice was precise, professional. "The Caldwell Street parcels. Marcus has been running the title on those for 3 months. He told me Daddy signed something," Renee said. Her voice was tight. "Renee." A pause. "Those signatures are not authenticated. If Marcus moves forward with this sale, your father could contest it and Marcus would be exposed." "Exposed for what? For filing a transfer deed with documents he created?" "That's fraud, honey." I stood in the side yard of my daughter's house, with the morning sun on my neck, and listened to my world shift under my feet. Marcus was not just disrespectful. He was attempting to sell 3 of my properties held in the Dupree family land trust, using documents he had fabricated. He had found the parcels in a county record search, seen my name, and assumed an old bus driver wouldn't notice until it was too late. He had found the parcels. He had not found all of them. I knocked on the back door. Renee opened it, and her face went the color of ash. The other woman, a paralegal named Cheryl, who had apparently grown a conscience overnight, grabbed her bag and excused herself within 60 seconds. My daughter stood in her kitchen and could not look at me. "How long have you known?" I asked. 3 weeks, she whispered. I sat down at her kitchen table. The same table I had helped them move into this house 4 years ago. "Did you think he was right?" I asked. "That I would not notice?" "I thought he would stop," she said. "I told him to stop, Daddy. I told him it was wrong. But you did not tell me." She started to cry. "I was scared of losing him. I know how that sounds." It sounded like my daughter choosing a man who was stealing from her own father over the truth. It sounded like 12 years of small erosions of, "He didn't mean it," and "He's under pressure," and "You know how he is finally adding up to something that could not be explained." I did not yell. I have never been a man who yells. My father used to say that a man who raises his voice has already lost the argument. I looked at my daughter until she could meet my eyes, and then I told her what I needed her to do. "Go about your day," I said. "Don't say a word to Marcus. Let him believe you did not see me this morning," I said. She wiped her face. "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to let him finish what he started," I said. and then I'm going to be there when it ends. I drove home and called my attorney. Her name is Gloria Tate, 40 years practicing property and trust law in this city, and she has saved my grandfather's land from being taken 3 times by 3 different people who all made the same mistake. They assumed an old black family's land was unclaimed, unguarded, or unimportant. Gloria picked up on the first ring. "Marcus Holt," I said. A pause. "How much does he know?" "Enough to be dangerous. Not enough to succeed." "I'll call the recorder's office," she said. "If he has filed anything, we freeze it today. If he hasn't, we set up a monitor on every parcel in the trust. I want to know the minute he moves." "You'll know before he does," Gloria said. While Gloria worked her side, I needed to understand what I was actually dealing with. Marcus Holt was not working alone. A bus driver's son-in-law with a commercial real estate license and an ego does not research land trust structures on his own. Someone had pointed him at my properties. Someone who understood what they were worth and needed a name without direct exposure to the fraud. That someone turned out to be a developer named Garrison Webb. I found out through a document Gloria pulled from a county planning submission, a preliminary site plan for a mixed-use development on Caldwell Street, submitted under a shell company, with Marcus listed as the property acquisition agent. Webb had been trying to buy those 3 parcels for 2 years. Every legitimate offer had been declined through my trust. So he found another way in. He found Marcus. What Marcus did not know, what Webb had either not told him or not discovered himself, was that the Caldwell Street parcels were not worth what the surface acreage suggested. They were worth 4 times that, because 6 months earlier, the city had quietly approved a transit corridor expansion that would run directly adjacent to those properties. The moment that expansion broke ground, those 3 parcels would become the most valuable undeveloped commercial land on the east side of the city. Garrison Webb knew. That's why he needed them so badly. Marcus was his instrument, and Marcus thought he was the genius. I let the plan continue for 10 more days. I did not confront Marcus. I sat in my house and I drank my coffee and I watched Celestine tend her garden, and I let Marcus Holt build his cage 1 bar at a time. On the 11th day, Gloria called me at 7 in the morning. "He filed," she said, "last night. Transfer deed on all 3 parcels. The signatures are forgeries. Good ones, but forgeries." "How long before the transfer processes?" 48 hours unless we intervene." "Don't intervene yet," I said. "Give me until noon." I did something I had not done in years. I called Renee, not to warn her, to ask her one question. "Does Marcus have a closing meeting scheduled?" A long silence. "Tomorrow, at Webb's office. 2 o'clock. "Thank you, baby," I said. "Daddy, is he going to go to prison?" I thought about that. I thought about my daughter, who had looked at the floor. I thought about 12 years of Christmas dinners, and a man who shook my hand like he was doing me a favor. "That depends on Marcus," I said. The next day, I was in Webb's office building at 1:45. I was not in the lobby. I was in the conference room on the 11th floor, sitting at the head of the table when Marcus walked in at 2 o'clock with a leather portfolio and the particular confidence of a man who has no idea what room he is walking into. He stopped in the doorway. Gloria was to my left. The city attorney's representative was to my right. There were 2 investigators from the county recorder's fraud division seated against the wall. And next to me, in a chair he had driven 3 hours to occupy, sat my older brother Clifton, who serves as the co-trustee of the Dupree Family Land Trust, which means that any transfer of trust property requires his signature alongside mine. Neither of our signatures were on the documents Marcus had filed. Garrison Webb was already in the room. He had arrived at 1:30. He looked at Marcus the way a man looks at a car that has just driven itself into a ditch. Marcus looked at me. His leather portfolio was open in his hand. Inside I could see the documents, the fake deed, the forged signatures, the transaction he had spent 3 months constructing. "Sit down, Marcus," I said. He did not sit. "Leonard, what is this? Is a private meeting." "Sit down." He sat. I did not raise my voice once in the next 40 minutes. I did not need to. Gloria walked through the fraudulent filing. The investigators presented the forensic document analysis. The city attorney's representative explained what the transit corridor approval meant for the land value, a number that made Marcus's face go slack in a way I had not seen before. Not guilt, shock. He had not known. Webb had not told him the real value. Webb had been using him for access and planned to cut him out at closing with a fraction of what the deal was worth. Marcus looked at Webb. Webb looked at the window. "The county is prepared to file criminal charges for deed fraud and forgery," Gloria said. "That carries up to 7 years." Marcus was gripping the edge of the conference table. He was not a villain. Let me be clear about that, because I think it matters. He was a small man who had made a very large mistake, a man whose insecurity about money and status had grown so loud inside him that he had convinced himself he was owed something he had not earned. He had looked at me and seen an old man coasting, and his hunger had done the rest. I looked at him for a long moment. I thought about Renee. I thought about what it means to give someone a way back versus a way out. "Here's what's going to happen," I said. "Mr. Webb is going to be handled by the county independently. That is not my concern." I looked at Webb, who had the good sense to say nothing. "You, Marcus, you are going to withdraw the filing by end of business today. You are going to resign from any involvement in any transaction related to Dupree Trust properties. And you are going to come to my house on Sunday and sit at my table and tell my wife what you did. Not what Webb told you to do, what you decided to do. You look her in the eye and you tell her." Marcus swallowed. "And if I do all that? Then I let my daughter decide what her marriage is worth," I said. "That's not my decision. It never was." He looked at me with the expression of a man who expected a much older version of this conversation, shouting, "Ultimatums," the blunt instrument of anger. What he got instead seemed to confuse him more than anything else. "You're not going to," he started. "Marcus," I said, "I have been watching you for 12 years. I have watched you move through my family like the rules don't apply to you. Like my daughter's love was a resource to draw down instead of a gift to tend. I want you to understand something." I leaned forward slightly. "I am not angry at you. I am tired of you. There is a difference. Angry means I still think you can surprise me. Tired means I have made my peace with whatever you decide to do next." He withdrew the filing at 4:15 that afternoon. He came to our house on Sunday. He sat at our kitchen table, the same table where he had eaten Celestine's sweet potato pie for 12 years and never once offered to help clear the dishes. And he told her. He told her about the parcels, about Webb, about the forgeries. His voice broke twice. Celestine listened with her hands flat on the table, still as stone, and when he finished, she stood up and refilled his water glass, because that is the kind of woman she is. Grace is not weakness. Celestine has always known the difference. Renee sat beside him through all of it. She did not hold his hand, but she stayed. What happened after that is between the two of them. Renee called me 2 weeks later and said they were in counseling. She did not ask me to forgive him on her behalf, and I did not offer to. Some things a man has to earn back with time, not words. Garrison Webb was charged by the county on 4 counts. I did not testify against him personally. I did not need to. The documents spoke every word. On a Thursday morning in November, Celestine and I drove out to Caldwell Street. We parked and walked the length of the 3 parcels, a stretch of land that runs along what will become the new transit line, flat and quiet and full of potential. A developer had approached me through Gloria with a legitimate offer, triple what Webb had been willing to pay Marcus. I had declined. I had other plans. My father's father was born 12 miles from where we were standing. He picked cotton on land that was not his, and then he came to this city and he found work, and he bought a lot, one lot, the size of half a city block because someone told him no black man in this county would ever own land. He kept the deed in a coffee tin under the floorboard. He showed it to my father. My father showed it to me. I own 47 properties now. I am not saying that to impress you. I am saying it to tell you where it started in a coffee tin under a floorboard, in a man who refused to let what he was told about himself become true. What we are building on Caldwell Street is not condominiums. It is not a mixed-use development. It is a community land trust, permanently affordable housing, a cooperative business space, and a credit union. The kind of infrastructure that lets a family stay in a neighborhood when the money comes in and the prices go up. The kind of thing Garrison Webb would have paved over without a second thought. On the day the groundbreaking permits were approved, I drove the Silverado out to the site alone, early, before Celestine was awake. I parked and sat with the engine off and looked at the empty lot in the gray morning light. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Renee. Just 3 words. I love you, Daddy. I sat there for a long time. People sometimes ask me, people who find out eventually, who hear the numbers, who put the pieces together. They ask me why I never said anything, why I drove the old truck, why I wore the Walmart sneakers, why I let men like Marcus Holt shake my hand with that grip and never corrected them. I tell them what my father told me. A man who needs to tell you who he is has already told you everything you need to know about him. The man who does not need to tell you the one who already knows he is the one to watch. Celestine always knew. That's all that ever mattered to me. I went home and made breakfast. I made her coffee the way she likes it, dark with 1 sugar, and I put it on the table before she came downstairs. When she walked into the kitchen in her robe and her reading glasses, she looked at the mug and then at me, and she said, "What are you smiling about, Leonard?" "Nothing," I said. "Everything." She sat down and wrapped both hands around the mug. Outside the window, the morning was coming in gold and slow. We did not talk about Marcus. We did not talk about Webb, or the parcels, or the gala, or any of it. We talked about her garden, and whether it was time to plant the collards, and what we were going to make for dinner. Some victories don't need a speech. They just need a quiet morning and the woman you love sitting across the table. That's the only wealth that was ever worth protecting. Real wealth isn't loud. It doesn't need to be. Leonard never announced himself, because he already knew who he was, and that quiet certainty protected his family better than any display of status ever could. When you stop needing the room to validate you, you become unshakable. Plant good things in secret, tend them with patience, and trust that when the time comes, the fruit will speak for itself, and it always does. A small note for you. This story was created and fictionalized by AI, crafted to bring you a moment of entertainment while leaving behind something worth keeping, a reminder that dignity, quietly held, is the most powerful thing a person can own.